did that thing where I planned really badly, and so I'm filming after I had a match last night, and things happened. My everything hurts. So just shut up and watch this video.
So, the Nintendo Switch 2, the return of Jafar, is starting to peek its beady eyes over the horizon, and with a run of 7 years and counting, it's certainly a more round and justifiable upgrade to a console than Sony's obscenely overpriced and underwhelming PS5 Pro. In fact, recent news of the Switch 2 back in the habit's potentially imminent announcement following so soon after the unveiling of Sony's $700 farce of a machine got me thinking about a few things, specifically about what we're all looking for when it comes to upgraded hardware, especially in an era where the diminishing returns on graphical improvement have truly started to reach paltry levels. What can new consoles offer us if they can't deliver on better graphics? What should they be looking to evolve instead? What is it that we want from future console generations? I can tell you this much about my reaction to the rumoured hardware, and it was the moment that made everything I think about gaming hardware clear as day. You want to know the thing that excited me the most? You can apparently clip the Joy-Con controllers into the side of the machine with magnets, instead of having to slide them in awkwardly. Yes, no more of that. Get in there, you don't fucking thing. And that's it. That's the thing that jumped out to me as the most pleasing bit of news. One of the most pleasing bits of news I've ever heard about any console ever. If Nintendo can improve upon the hardware's graphics, yeah, cool beans, but improving upon the parts of the hardware we interact with, that is where it's at. And Lord knows when it comes to interaction, the Switch has it down pat. The Switch is quite possibly the best console ever made, especially if directly compared to home consoles. And I say this as someone who is regularly accused by strange people online of having a seething bias against Nintendo, so you know what I'm saying is 100% incontrovertibly accurate. It's a fantastic machine though, it really is. The gimmick of being both a home and handheld console is something I've gotten so much utility out of, so much more than, say, the PS5's heavily marketed ray tracing that I've turned off with every PS5 game that allows it, so said game actually runs at a rate that isn't unpleasant. It's got one of the best library of games a system has ever had, even if the eShop is saturated with shovelware. I've literally just torn myself away from the new Zelda game, that Echoes of Wisdom one, to record this, and all I can think about while I'm talking is summoning an army of Octoroks and saying we've got reserves like Longshanks in Braveheart every time one of them dies.
Pardon, sire. Won't we hit our own troops?
Yes. But we'll hit theirs as well. We have reserves.
Faster, Octo Pussycat. Kill. Kill. The Joy-Cons being two little guys has allowed me to really slouch like a grade A piece of slovenly shit. The motion controls are pretty decent when one has to use them, and most importantly of all, you can get controllers with a bizarre sort of neon lemon colour. Now that's innovation. At the time of writing this sentence, I don't know any of the, or indeed saying it, I don't know any of the projected specs of the Switch 2 as it relates to graphics, GPU, all that shit under the hood. I don't know if those are out, I don't care. I have, in fact, made a concerted point to not look those up right now because it doesn't matter to me. At least not to the degree that it would influence my purchasing decisions as far more pressing concerns, like bizarre sort of neon lemon colours. Nintendo, of course, hasn't been at the forefront of in-game visual standards for, well, decades at this point. This trend was definitively kicked off with the Wii, a console that lagged far behind its contemporaries when the Xbox 360 and PS3 came out. With barely above Dreamcast level visuals, it was often mocked by the gamers TM for being, in their words, two PS2s duct taped together. None of that mattered though. The Wii had a genuinely innovative interface and a library of inventive and compelling games to back it up. Even if said library was saturated with shovelware, it was a success. Not just a success, in fact, but a goddamn global phenomenon. A mainstream adopted sales behemoth and something that embedded itself in the culture outside of video games. If you weren't there, I can't really do justice to how fucking everywhere the Wii was. For all their visual spectacle, the Xbox and PlayStation platforms were left in the dust, so much so that they would desperately try to ape the two PS2s duct taped together with the Kinect and PlayStation Move devices, the combined success and longevity of which were... Mate, my stock's dropped, but I'm doing better than them. It turns out most audiences didn't really give a flying fuck about raw horsepower, they just wanted fun, interesting games to play, and to feel like they were bowling, but without lifting a ball. The Wii U was decidedly less successful than the Wii and is historically considered a flop, but I certainly wouldn't blame that on the fact that the Wii U's graphics still hadn't caught up. Confusing messaging around its name and marketing was a big factor, plus, you know, not every hardware innovation is gonna succeed, and maybe a chunky iPad for a controller was simply not what people wanted. I know I liked it. I really loved the Wii U. I think what happened to it is a shame. I think what happened to the Miiverse while it was still around, though, was fucking brilliant. We owned that Rabbids channel with Willem Dafoe memes for months. Rest in peace, Dafoeverse. And then we have the Switch. Was it the cultural second coming of the Wii? Not really, but it's fucking successful, having lasted 7 years without faltering and still getting game releases that routinely become bestsellers. That Tears of the Kingdom game people love so fucking much was just last year. Its longevity is such that I still don't feel a successor is even all that necessary, but then again, I can't say no to Joycons that snap into the side like we live in a rational and reasonable world, so sign me up. Nintendo has always tried to push a meaningful physical change with its hardware, not simply improve what's inside them along a linear track. From the weirdo controllers of the N64 and GameCube to the unique two-screened nature of the DS, the company excels at something Microsoft and Sony have never been able to master, knowing that when it comes to consoles, beauty is not all about what's on the inside. Do you know what I think has been the most meaningful and important innovation in games consoles of the last 10 years? The share button. In an age dominated by social media, a little button that clips your gameplay and lets you put it on Twitter or wherever is genuinely one of the cleverest, most relevant things that's ever been done to a console, and I'll give Sony its flowers on doing that with the PS4 all day long. Gamers can be a vain lot, and being particularly proud of a good performance in any game is understandable. Lord knows I've clipped plenty of times when I've looked half competent. Maybe you absolutely dominated Father Gascoigne in Bloodborne, or did good stuff in whatever it is people in Call of Duty do that's good these days.
Steph, hi, this is Zilla. I know you're busy at Effie's Big Gay Brunch right now, but I was doing a video search for good things people are proud of doing in Call of Duty, and all I got back was war crimes and someone offering to impregnate my mother. Now, the good news is she's got a date for next Friday, but the bad news is I got nothing here I can use. So what do you want to do about this?
I don't know, fuck Activision, bunch of abusive cunts. Having a button to save those moments you wish somebody had been around to see is honestly just brilliant. It's genuinely useful, actively functional, and it's more meaningful, more culturally salient than having better graphics at the expense of a good frame rate. Plus, as a game reviewer who constantly needs screenshots, I appreciate having a button for that to a degree y'all will never understand. Now, as far as the PS5 goes, with all its compromised visuals, only one thing stands out to me as a genuinely brilliant element: the DualSense Controller. Sadly, barely any games have made proper use of it since the PS5 launched, but for those that do, it's a genuine marvel. The recently released Astro Bot is, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best games ever made, and a big part of that is due to how it uses a controller with haptic feedback to such a degree, you can call it a game that has actual, tangible texture. The PS5's controller doesn't just vibrate with an ordinary rumble feature, it varies the frequency, the intensity, and the positioning of the rumble to create genuinely different feelings. Astrobot, using both the vibrations and built-in speaker together, can make you feel the difference between walking on grass, on tiles, on glass, on metal. It's basically impossible to convey through a video, but feeling the very texture of a game change in your hand, well, that's something my autistic little graspers simply cannot get sick of. Astrobot and its predecessor, Astru's Playroom, aka the best tech demo in history, are more than just games. They're outright stim toys. Not bad for a company that once said Rumble is a last-gen feature. God, Sony really were an arrogant bunch of pricks in the PS3 generation. Their smugness matched only by how fucking wrong they were. I've not been shy in expressing my cynicism toward Bloober Team's remake of Silent Hill 2, predominantly because it's bloody Bloober Team. I can't tell you how much my interest shot up though after the recent State of Play trailer that detailed how Silent Hill 2 would be using the DualSense's features to enhance the atmosphere. That very genuinely was the first bit of real excitement I felt about the remake. Similarly, Sonic X Shadow Generations, is that what it's called, is also going to make use of haptic feedback, and it's enhanced my interest there as well, certainly influencing which version of the game I want to get. That more developers are making use of the DualSense now is something I'm really thrilled about. It's a true hardware innovation that makes games feel better to play. And I'll take a game that feels better over one that looks better any day. It is, after all, why I always favour a PS5 game's performance mode over its quality mode.
Top to bottom, up and over and flick. Top to bottom, up and over and flick. Top to bottom, up and over and flick. Top to bottom.
If news about the Switch 2 is genuine, then we're getting a bigger screen while retaining the machine's thin and lightweight frame and Joycons held in place by magnets, and I'm delighted by the idea. No, it doesn't sound like it's going to be as dramatic an evolution as Nintendo's usual hardware jumps, but the fact that there is a focus on improving the physical hardware as you feel it in your hands is promising as all fuck, and it's the thing I'm interested in. The Switch is a fucking great machine, and not because of its graphics. So yes, having a better version of that machine, I'm all for Nintendo not throwing the baby out with the bathwater this time. Much of the sentiment I'm expressing here is part of a consistent attitude I've had throughout my work, that the industry has placed far too much of a premium on graphics to the point of unsustainable development costs, desperately stone-squeezing hardware upgrades, and returns that are diminishing their way down the toilet. As I've said for years, some of the biggest games of all time have been so visually far behind that a snob would say they look like shit. Minecraft, Terraria, Among Us, Vampire Survivors, even heavy hitters like Call of Duty or Valve's games have historically run on older engines, and they've not been at the forefront of graphical splendour. We're talking the biggest games, the ones most capable of the cultural penetration that game executives have spunky dreams about. And art direction is always more important than simply how impressive everything looks, which is why The Wind Waker is still one of the best looking games of all time, why Viva Pinata was the best looking game of its generation, and I will fight you on that shit. Anyone who says otherwise is a T-1000 in disguise. They've already killed your mum. Don't listen to them. It's why a controller that tells the difference between grass and pavement is far, far more important than how detailed Joel's eyes are, or how much hair can flop around on someone's head in a game that looks visually spectacular but artistically derivative. A game full of details that the average gamer isn't gonna really fucking notice. Going back to The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, that new one that came out, I have routinely stopped while playing it to think, wow, this looks fucking lovely. And it's not because of ray tracing, it's because it's colourful and bright and adorable. It is well designed visually, it is artistically, stylistically gorgeous. You can only improve graphics so much until you hit the ceiling. Physical hardware innovation can lead to infinite possibilities. It can create all new ways to play games, all new ways to experience game worlds, and, well, there's no real ceiling on having new and intriguing ideas, not in the same way there is on strictly linear tech specs. I'll tell you this much, ain't no Switch 2 gonna cost $700, and it'll be far more interesting than merely offering almost imperceptibly better looking games. No, the Switch 2's gonna have magnets.
Also, did you see my little ass? Oh, meh. 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 You did that. Meh. I can't stay mad at you. I'm sorry. Thank God for me.